Good morning and welcome to our second episode of Dev Bootcamp Live. I'm your host, Juan Lizarazo. I'm here with our other host, Jared Potter. And today we have a very exciting topic. But before that, I'm just going to do a recap of our first episode. Jared and I are software engineers in Utah, and we're very experienced. And we want to share everything we have learned so far with you, our audience, so then you can land your first job, especially if you're just a graduate from a boot camp, from a computer science program. It doesn't matter. So we want to share everything we know with you so then you can land that first job and start in the industry or be very successful with your first job. Like no matter what level you are, we want to help you close that bridge between graduation and landing that first job. So let's just go ahead and start, Jared. So you have an exciting topic for us today. So what is it?
Yeah, welcome everybody. Today I wanted to talk about how to continue learning after you're done with your boot camp, after you no longer have your instructor telling you what to do. So this is a challenge for a lot of my students, and I know for a lot of Juan's students as well. When you get out, a lot of students kind of fall off a cliff and don't continue learning because they don't have that structure. So today we want to talk about different strategies on how you can continue learning and different resources you can use to continue learning on your path towards eventually getting a job in the software industry.
Okay, that sounds really good. That sounds good. That's a good topic. I haven't thought about that. Like I didn't think about like, what happens like once you don't have an instructor like that. That must be hard, right? I didn't think about that. Cool. So yeah. So what do you have first? You get us started here.
Yeah, so my number one tip that I would recommend for students is to continue to interact and network with other people in the tech industry. So number one, if you have a lot of your classmates that you've made connections with through your boot camp, continue talking to them, just having conversations, talking about what you're working on, what new technologies you're learning, or what new languages you're learning. Learning from your peers is one of the most powerful things that you can leverage to continue your learning. And not to mention, by having those interactions and continuing to be able to challenge each other, you're also building relationships with them and networking with them. And who knows, down the line, maybe you're going to get hired first and then you can help them get a job and you'll get a referral bonus. Or, maybe they will get jobs through their connections first and then they can pull you into their company as well. So I would say that would be my number one tip to just get things started off. I don't know. What's your take on that one?
Yeah. Thinking about it, I was just thinking like as you were mentioning that is staying in touch with your friends, right? Like right now, for example, like I I'm definitely in touch with many of my friends that I went to college with, right? With some of them, I have had the opportunity to work together, right? Yeah, we have had opportunities for each other. Like sometimes they have told me like, Juan, they were hiring here. Would you be interested, right? So the power of networks, that's really important. But also like thinking about what you were mentioning too, that sometimes because when you work at a different company, you're exposed to different ways of doing things, different tech stacks, different practices, right? So that collective knowledge. I was thinking of collective knowledge, like
Yeah, it's a
when
great term.
when someone mentions something, like a friend of mine mentions, like, look, I'm playing with this new framework. What do you think? Right? I get exposed to other things that I would never discover myself. So that's a very good one. Yeah, staying in touch, and that's an easy one, right? It's easy to stay in touch with your friends, right? From your educational program. So that's a good one. Okay, so let's imagine this. So I just finished my program. I graduated. I'm staying in touch with my friends, right? But I'm not talking to them all the time. Everybody's busy, right? Everybody has a life. So what would be the second tip that you have for us today? Like, what do I do to learn because I don't have anybody like showing me the path? What would I do then?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So my next tip would be to find what I would call passion projects, or at least projects that have some sort of meaning behind them. So I know for myself, I am very excited, creative person, but I like to build a lot of my own little personal projects. And during the course of that, I learn all sorts of different technologies and different stacks and get to explore some new things. Of most recent, I've been playing around with FFmpeg, which is this video audio transcoding software. But so like either personal projects for things that you want to build that are going to benefit you, and don't worry about whether or not these tools are already out there. There's already like production versions of them. The purpose of it is that you're building it and you're learning through that process of building it. And then you get to have the pride of having built that thing yourself. And not to mention, you get to customize it exactly how you want to use that tool rather than being forced to use the tool that others have for you. And just to add to that, if it's not a personal tool, at least finding a real user of something that you can build. So a friend, a family member, or maybe a local business. Maybe one of these groups needs a new website. Well, hey, build them a website so then they can kind of help you build it. And I'm sure that they're going to want features on the website that you've never built before. So you're going to have to push yourself to learn those things. And that's a lot of how the real world software development works, is that you're being instructed to build something. You might not know how to build it, but you have to figure out how to build it and then build it.
Yeah, that gets me thinking about something that I personally do, and I always recommend my students, especially as they are getting close to graduation, is that as like one good way to get more experience, right, and get exposure is through like contributing to an open source project. So for example, how did you find a project? For example, let's say you use a lot of npm packages, right? That's the reality for our current state of JavaScript. We use npm packages, and just find one npm package you like that you're very familiar with. Let's say, for example, you're using Lodash. You like Lodash a lot. You use it all the time. Then maybe just go find the GitHub project for that. You can find it on the npm website. You go to the package page, and to the right, you will see that it says GitHub. You click it, and you will see the source code. So the second thing that you would do then is that since you know how to use the library, you know the consuming side, right, the public API of it, you can just go and start seeing, like, for example, I like this function. Just go and check how the function works under the hood. And then you can see that code through the eyes of the developer that wrote it, or the developers that wrote it. So that's a good way of learning there. But then once you get there, you can then start contributing. Just go find issues. There's a tip there that in the issues tab in GitHub, there's labels in most of the projects where they say first good issue. They're called like FGI. And that just means that they're good for new people, either new to the industry or new to the project. So that would be really good, because you can grab one of those. You can ask the maintainers, like, hey, I want to fix this. And as you fix that, you're going to get feedback. You're going to get code reviews. You're going to get experience of working in real life code that is used. And this is very powerful. Just imagine you're at an interview, or in your resume, you put this, like, I contribute to open source. I've done these contributions to these projects that are used by these many, like you can see a stats, how many downloads, or how much usage these projects have. So for example, one contribution I did to a project, a couple of contributions, and I can say, like, yeah, this is used by 4 billion websites worldwide, right? That's very impressive. That your employer is going to get excited and is going to learn more. And especially because you gain this collective knowledge from these other open source contributors. So this would add to what Jared is saying about finding a project. I mean, there's so many good ideas out there, or existing projects that you can just contribute to.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
what would be a third tip now? So now, like, okay, we covered stay in touch, right, with your network, right? Learn from them. Find a project or contribute to open source, right? Which is contributing to a project, or build something right on the side. Keep building. What would be that third one that you would say that our audience would need to keep in mind to do next, or to do along with these ones?
Yeah, my third tip would be to basically write about your learning. So what I mean by this is either one of kind of two paths, or maybe a combination of two paths. One, either write privately. So for example, I have a Google Doc where it's essentially a software engineering journal, where as I'm learning new things, I'll basically write up a little paragraph about what I learned and maybe put in some code snippets or things like that. Part of it is to be able to reference back to it in case I ever wanted to look at that. But the process of writing things down, right? There's a lot of research behind writing things down, helps sink them into our mind and helps actually, make them a bit more solid. So that's in a private form. In a public form, being able to either write blog posts on DevTO, Medium, or there's a handful of other different sites out there, or even on Twitter. There's a common hashtag of 100 days of code out there that a lot of developers will post each day as they're learning something new. to kind of help keep motivation to keep going and to keep learning. But yeah, as you're learning, being able to write things down is going to be powerful. And I personally would encourage people as much as possible to write publicly, either on Twitter or in a blog post, because it forces you to make sure that what you're composing is digestible and is, you know, deliverable to other people, that they're going to understand it. And even if it's not some long post, a lot of, you know, development posts that I see are like kind of a page long, kind of a short blip of, hey, here's what I did, here's how I did it, here's the code, here's a link to the GitHub. There you go. So that would be my third tip. I want to know what your thoughts are on that one.
Yeah. Like actually, like here, like I have my book here, and all the time I'm writing things either like for me to remember. Let's say I learn something new or I see something new. Sometimes I see a new library and then I want to check it out later, but not at the moment. So I write it down. Or sometimes there's a definition that I want to remember because I know what the thing is, but I don't know how to define it. So I want to be I want to be able to explain it better. So I write down the full definition. So in my book, I write full definitions of things like that are very technical, or maybe a library I need to check later, or something that I didn't understand from a meeting. And I want to like, okay, I want to research that because that's not my expertise. So I can expand my knowledge. So writing is very powerful. Also, yeah, the writing, for example, I contribute to Stack Overflow. So when I put answers, right, I'm writing this technical knowledge. And I have found that since I started doing that, I became better at expressing myself with technical topics in written media, which is really powerful because when you are like right now, we're in a remote world, you help your friends, right, through chat or your coworkers. So writing definitely is very powerful. Also, from the perspective of as an employer, right? Let's say I'm interviewing somebody and I see that that person is writing, and then I check the applicant's blogs, right? And I'm like, wow, this person is really good. So that will also help you stand out as an applicant. So if you start writing, even if like, that they don't have to be very long articles. I mean, articles that you can read in 2 minutes. Technical articles don't have to be super long, and then you can get a lot of exposure. And believe me, this impresses any employer, especially if you make it clear in your resume in that intro paragraph, like, hey, I write on Medium. You can find me here. I have this many articles with this many viewers. For example, just listen to this. Like, I have an article. I just wrote one article on Medium like 2 years ago or 3 years ago. I don't remember. Something technical I wanted to share that there was not enough content out there about it. And it's related to my Udemy class. And what happened is that right now I have like 80,000 views on that article, right? And just that single article has created exposure, has driven more traffic to my class. It has also impressed my employers, like, hey, yeah, I have this article and I have 80,000 views and I write and I do this and that, right? So that definitely helps because when I wrote the article, I also learned more about the topic that I was writing about. So I think that's a very good tip that I really never considered.
Yeah, one thing I want to add to that as well is that, you know, I think a counter argument that a lot of students might come up with is like, why would I write an article on this topic? Maybe I learned that topic from another article, or maybe, you know, there's already a better article out there. You know, the whole idea of this is your continued learning, your continued path. So get that out of your brain that just because someone else has already done some version of it doesn't mean that you can't also do it. And there's also this mentality that I'm borrowing from Kent C. Dodds, a local guy here in Utah, a developer. Is he talks about this hamburger shop. It's like you have McDonald's and you have Burger King, right? They both sell hamburgers, and somehow they're both successful. And the same thing works when we're talking about delivering content to the world. Just because someone else is delivering content and some people are consuming that doesn't mean that you can't also produce content that could also be consumed. So please, don't let that be a blocker for you to write content about what you're learning.
Yeah, and that's very true because if you think about like everything, like for example, the topic I wrote about or the answers I have put in Stack Overflow, you can find a separate version, a different version, somebody else, a different perspective, right? But you can always add value, and the way you express it or your version can definitely add value to this collective knowledge to the community, and at the same time, it creates your own professional portfolio, your own professional presence that will make you more appealing to to potential employers as you are finding that first job. So something that I was thinking about is like, well, let's talk about motivation. So how did you find the motivation? Let's say I just graduated and I'm like, okay, how do I motivate myself to do these things, to maybe to write, or how do I find myself the motivation to start writing codes, or like, because that's something that I have noticed students struggle with. One, they don't have to be held accountable by a mentor, right, or by an instructor, or they don't have like these homework they have to deliver or things like that, right? These checkpoints that they need to meet in order to graduate. So how would you say like they could find that motivation? Because motivation is it can be really difficult to be motivated to just go and write things or write code, find the time or make the time. So what would be the tips for you to create that motivation, like what our students, our audience can do to be motivated to do these things?
Definitely. That is a struggle for sure. To go hand in hand with this idea, and I'm going to answer the question as well, is there's this term called analysis paralysis, and it goes in lots of aspects of life. But a simple example is from a designer. Let's say a designer is building a website and they need to pick colors for that website. Well, if you ever looked at how many colors there are, there's a lot of colors. And analysis paralysis is like you have so many options that you are paralyzed by picking the option of what to do. And I think the same thing comes in play when we're talking about learning software. It's like, okay, like, I mean, number one, how do I get started? How do I get motivated? But then once you want to get started and motivated, like, what are you then going to do? And that really is a challenge. As far as a few tips for that goes, I would say that one is making to make the time to get started is the hardest thing. I know that with a lot of life and a lot of boot campers, people have families, they have lots of different other obligations that they're having to juggle in life. But as much as you can, make some time to get started. So I think that's the first step. Set aside maybe an hour on Saturday or Sunday. And, I mean,
Yeah.
it's kind of tricky. Again, I think if you have some sort of idea, bouncing around your head, I would say one process to kind of help get you started is maybe even just drawing it out on a piece of paper, like sketch up a little UI of what you might want it to look like. And maybe once you have that, once you get pulled in, once you've got started a bit, then you're going to be more motivated to actually then go and make it realize it inside of an application. So that'd be one tip.
Yeah, I have
I'll ask you. Go ahead.
yeah, like to do that, like I mean, some students find motivation when they're held accountable, right? Or maybe they struggle finding the idea. So I'm just gonna so something we could do, I mean, to help out our audience, like I'm gonna share our Twitters, and let's say if you're listening out there and you need help finding motivation, just tweet about it, tag us, and we'll give you ideas. We'll give you ideas of a project. We'll give you ideas of an open source project you can contribute to. We'll give you a problem to solve, right? Like we can tell you, like, look, this is a problem we run into this day. Just fix it, put it in GitHub. We'll give you feedback. Like, we like to help the community. So I'm going to share our Twitters, and just follow us, ping us, tweet us, right? And let us know that you need help, and we'll be happy to give you some input, some ideas, keep you motivated, hold you accountable. Like, hey, where's my update, right? We can definitely do that, and it does not take a lot of time. So I'm just going to go ahead and share here our Twitters. So, go ahead and share yours, Jared.
Yeah, so everyone can find me at twitter.com/Jared Potter. That's JAREDPOTTER.
Awesome. So yeah, follow Jared. There's a big follow button there. And my Twitter is you can find me at twitter.com/Juan Lizarazo Yi. So I'm gonna spell that out for you, since it is a Latino last name that I have. It's really hard to spell sometimes. So it's JUANLIZARAZOG. So follow me on Twitter, and just let me know if you need help with anything, and I'll just give you some ideas. I'll just reply back. And if you like this content, let us know. We'll be very happy to hear from you, hear your feedback, so we can create more content for you. If you give us ideas, if you tell us like, hey, we would like to learn more about this other thing, and we'll create a whole episode for this.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I agree with Juan there. Being able to have a little bit of a conversation on Twitter, either privately or as a comment, it helps us realize what your interests are, and perhaps we can find different projects that are going to kind of suit your interests or what technologies you're currently working in.
Exactly. Or if you want to share your resume or something, we can give you some feedback. I mean, for us, it takes us a minute or two. It's not going to take a lot of our time since we don't have a big audience right now. Yeah. So we get to help you. We have helped people before with career wise, right? So it's something we do. I mean, that's why we teach. That's why we also work in the industry as engineers. Awesome. Okay. So finding that motivation. So what will be the next step here, Jared?
Oh man, that's a good question. Trying to think of other ways that motivate me to get started on things.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be about motivation. I mean, something else to like, okay, if I don't have a mentor, how do I learn? Because I think I have a couple in mind. Let me think. Like, for example, one that I would say is that, I like udemy.com, right? I have my class there. So I always recommend, like, anybody who asks me about content, even if it is not my content, I'm happy to share content that always points to Udemy, since I love the marketplace because there's so much knowledge there and it's very affordable. So that will be my next one. Let's say, for example, you want to apply for a job at a company. You check that company, check the job description, see what they're looking for, identify those key skills. And then out of those, like maybe there's a list of 10, identify 6 skills that are really crucial for that job. And then see like how you compare to those. For example, let's say one of those skills is TypeScript and unit testing. Then what do? Then go to Udemy and then find the best class there in testing, the best class in TypeScript, one that you like, check the instructor, see if you like their teaching style. You have a 30-day guarantee there, so you can buy the class. And if you don't like it, you can return it and find another one that works for you. And then that's another way that can keep you motivated, because we in those structured programs, like those structured classes, there's a structured content. So that means like, hey, you're going to learn these different things. And then you're going to find motivation, because usually there's some projects that you have to code along with, or there's code. You can ask questions to the instructor. So that's one way. But there's more places. I mean, there's pluralsight.com, there's udacity.com, and those are my to-go places for learning. I mean, I myself take still classes there on things that I want to learn to expand my knowledge. So that will be my next tip there, because that will keep you busy. It will help you gain a new skill. And this skill is not just random skill. It's a skill for a job that you want to apply for, a company that you want to work for. And even if like you apply for the company or you apply at other companies, I'm sure that skill repeats in many roles in different companies. So let's say you learn TypeScript, is not something that it was a waste, right? Make sure that you're learning current stuff. Like some companies use very old technology. Don't put all your effort there. That's why I say at least the 6 critical skills you need to get that job. So sometimes they will say, okay, if you know TypeScript and you know unit testing and JavaScript, you're like, okay, 3 because I already know JavaScript, right? Or expand your knowledge in JavaScript. So that would be the next tip there
No,
for me.
I totally agree with that. The going goal oriented. You find the jobs that have kind of the skills that you want to, really learn about. Now, whether or not you get that job doesn't really matter, right? After you look at like a bunch of different jobs that you're interested in, there's going to be commonalities, Venn diagrams of which technologies are going to kind of be shared. And then, use that as a motivator to go and learn about learn about some of these topics on Udemy or Pluralsight or some of the other ones. What I would add, if you are going to be following along with a course or tutorial, is making sure that either the course itself has some form of code practice that you can apply directly, or being able to, after taking that course or while taking that course, have some sort of like sidecar project that you're also practicing those skills with. If you're just sitting down and watching the course straight through and you don't take any notes and you don't, write anything down or don't create any sort of project or apply what you're learning, it's going to go in one ear and right out the other. I've definitely sat down and watched some courses that I couldn't tell you very much about because I never actually applied it after I watched it. So make sure that you are not just watching a course, but that you are applying it and practicing it to really get more value out of it.
Awesome. And one tip that I can add to that is related, as you were talking, it came to me, which is as you're applying to interviews, after the interview, take note of what you didn't know about or what you didn't know so well. So then you can write it down. And then when you get home, you're like, okay, I didn't know about these 3 things they asked me. And then go research those 3 things. And now I'm sure in the next interview that those topics come up, you will be better at it because you went and studied that. So that's good motivation too. And I do that myself. Like when I interview, I don't know everything, right? So I write down the things I don't know, and then I go and research, and then I learn something new that now gives me a better chance out in the market, right?
Oh
So
yeah.
that's good. So I would say let's go ahead and wrap it. Let's just summarize the takeaways from today's episode. So the first one was to expand your network and continue with your network, stay in touch with your friends, so then you can learn from them, especially if they get a job. They can help you get a job there, because referrals are such a powerful thing in the industry. Even with referrals, sometimes you get ahead and you stand out. You get directly to the hiring manager. Just keep that queue with 200 applicants. So it's very powerful.
Yeah.
The second
One
one.
bit just to add to that just a little bit is make sure when you are interacting with these peers, don't necessarily just talk about just job stuff, but maybe ask them what projects they're working on in their personal life, and maybe they'll ask you about your projects. And again, you're sharing that conversation about learning. It's not purely about the jobs, but yes,
Yeah,
the ultimate goal
yeah.
is to then get the job.
Yeah, exactly. And maybe you can work something out together, right? Like, or make it a goal. Like, you're gonna be my job finding peer, right? And you're gonna hold me accountable. We're gonna apply together to these jobs a week, and different things like that. That can help you find motivation. So that's the first one. What's our second takeaway for today, Jared?
The second one was finding projects to work on, whether or not that is working on personal projects that you're personally motivated about, working on projects for friends or family member, local businesses, or as Juan pointed out, is also a really great place, open source projects. And one thing I wanted to add with that open source projects earlier is that, like Juan was saying, you're going to get code review, and you're going to have kind of this process of back and forth of actually creating your code and making sure that it's going to be production quality, because that's who's using it, right? If all these other companies are using it in their production, applications, then it needs to be up to snuff. And although it might seem like there's a lot of steps and processes to the open source at times, there's a reason for it. There's good reason for it. So yes,
Awesome.
next one is basically working on projects.
Awesome. Working on projects and open source if you can. The third one, writing, right? So write about your progress, write about what you're learning, write about something you want to learn about, make it public, make it private, writing paper, like just write. Writing will help you learn more, will help you organize the ideas. And also when you are in an interview or when you are talking to someone about a technical topic, you'll express yourself better. So it's just such a powerful but simple tool to have. And that would be, that's our third takeaway. So what would be the fourth one?
The fourth one I believe we talked about is how to get motivated on something. And that's oftentimes a struggle to get going along with. But like I said, what kind of from the last tip, being able to write things down. So again, if you have an idea in mind, start writing it down on paper, and that might get you motivated enough to then start building it in real life. The other one, like what Juan said, look at job postings and find what technologies those jobs are asking for, and use that as a driving point to help out. And then lastly, kind of Juan mentioned it, was after an interview, questions that you don't know. That's probably the most motivating factor, is when you go into an interview and there's questions that you don't know, that's going to motivate you to then go learn that topic, because, you arguably just, failed an interview because of it. So that's definitely going to be a motivating factor.
Yeah, and between interviews, between companies, a lot of questions repeat because there's common skills among companies. So that will definitely give you a better chance to stand out among candidates. And the last takeaway is about, what was the last thing we mentioned?
Oh man, I
Oh,
can't
it's structured
remember.
learning. Yeah. So,
structured learning. Yeah.
Udemy, Pluralsight, just find structured classes on topics. Check job listings, companies you want to work for. Identify the 6 key skills there. See what those skills are technical. Find content on that. Find classes on that. Like 4-hour classes you can do online, 30-hour classes you can do online. That keeps you motivated because you have a virtual mentor. So that's structured learning. So you can continue your learning after your program, after your bootcamp, after your college degree. I mean, whatever, like that will keep you motivated. And I think that's it for today. I think we'll see you in the next episode of Dev Bootcamp Live. And yeah, this was your host Juan Lizarazo and our other host Jared
Potter. Take care.
Thank you so much, and we'll see you possibly next week.